Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our next episode of Masters of Product. I'm really excited today to actually introduce my friend Brian Fugere. He is the CPO of symplr, a healthcare SaaS company. He also leads their strategy in all of their AI initiatives, which is why we're so excited to talk to him. He has over 30 years of product experience. He's built great products that customers love. As for me, I'm your host, Mustafa. I run a boutique consulting firm called Echo Point, where I help product organizations adopt AI. Brian, you and I talk all the time, but I really wanted to get you on this episode today because you're doing something that is quite unusual, right? So most companies in the last year or year and a half have been going all in on AI, which is not surprising. But most of them are using AI to build their products, which is great, and it is a much needed piece. But you actually have a two-pronged strategy, right? You're infusing AI into your product so you can make it better, but you're also using AI to actually help your product team become more effective and more productive. I really want to double down on that, if that's okay with you today, just because it's something that we align on so well. Let's start with high-level picture, if that's okay, right? Tell me why you decided to actually focus on improving productivity. What were you trying to or what are you trying to get at?
So our symplr is a healthcare SaaS company. We are focused on enabling the delivery of care. So we do the back office stuff that makes it easy for caregivers to deliver care. We have 40, 50 products in our portfolio. We've grown rapidly through acquisition over the last 5 years, more than tripling the company over that period of time. And in a private equity-backed company, when you do that, you're not adding a ton of people everywhere within the company. So you run lean and you run hard to drive that growth and to delight the customers. And so what we found over the last year and a half, through our skip level one-on-ones, through our conversations with our employees in our town halls, through our eNPS surveys, is that the product team in particular, since product is generally at the center of everything in most software companies, the team is feeling strained. And when my product ops leader and I spent time thinking about how do we make their lives easier, one of the things that we quickly settled on was how can we leverage the power of AI to improve productivity, to improve efficiency, and quite frankly, just to give them time back so that they can actually take a breath and feel like they have a normal, I go to work, I do my job, I'm done at the end of the day, and I don't have to log on for another 5 hours. Everybody works at night at some point or another. It shouldn't be the day-to-day every
daily.
Single day. It's not a death march.
Yeah.
And so as we thought about infusing AI into our products, like you mentioned, we also thought about how do we leverage this technology internally to make it easier for our own teams.
And so I love that, right? Because I think most people are not thinking about AI, using AI holistically from that perspective. Can I take it a step further? So let's just assume that you are able to use AI to be productive and to be the efficiency that you're talking about. What are the outcomes that you're hoping that you're going to get, or what are some of the early outcomes you've already seen when you've been using AI?
I was reading an article yesterday about sort of the expectations in the industry around the impact AI could have internally. And it ranges, and people were settling at like 60%. Oh, we're gonna make people 60% more productive. I don't think that's realistic. I think they're coming back down to, let's say it's 20%. So if you could take 20% and give that time back to an employee, and in a product environment, if you could give them back 8 to 10 hours a week to do something else, whether it's go to their kid's soccer game, it's to do the laundry, it's to go read something and improve their own skills, take an online class to improve their skills, whatever the case may be, or to just get to that project that they haven't been able to get to give them those 8 to 10 hours back is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm shooting for, is like, how do I make it easier for them to do their jobs? So that's the sort of altruistic, selfish part of me. The company part of me says, okay, can I make it easier to develop richer requirements with better, deeper user stories that we can then that are more complete, that we can hand to architecture and UX and to engineering and say, go build this. And it gives us the ability to maintain our agility, but to do it in a much deeper, richer way so that when we go to build products, we're even more efficient there as well. And that's really that's the selfish company side of me saying, how do I become better at being a product person while returning time to the employees? So it's a win-win. Win for me and win for them.
I agree. I actually think on the latter side, you're saving a lot of time because you're just reducing rework. And that, and you know this, right? Engineering is the most expensive resources. So if you can reduce that time, that's great. And then, of course, product acceleration, so your velocity improves as well. And on the first point, what I've seen, and I'm curious to hear your point of view, is that yes, you make the work-life balance happier, but that also the company benefits from it because you know what? That's a retention policy. And you know how expensive PMs are to hire and how long it takes to onboard them. So frankly speaking, the company wins there too, and the PM wins. I don't know if you are seeing something along the same lines.
Yeah, for sure. If you think in healthcare in particular, when we hire product managers and product owners, typically we either get healthcare domain knowledge or we get good product knowledge, and it's very rare to get both. And so assuming that you hire for product knowledge, then it's going to take them a year to get up to speed from a domain perspective. So that turnover cost me a year really of being able to drive my roadmap forward and another year of being able to formulate a roadmap that actually makes some coherent sense. And so I don't really want to take a 12 to 18 to 24 month break in any product if I don't have to. So if I can make their jobs easier and they stick around and they like symplr as a place to work, they'll tell their friends. So maybe we get some of those people to come too, and they stick around. It's good for everybody.
Yeah, at the very least, it's a mitigation strategy.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Exactly.
And benefit is that it becomes more attractive, right? Because PMs, listen, you talk to them as much as I do. They want to do the interesting, cool, innovative stuff. And it's the tedious stuff that bogs them down that really is the one that they end up doing late at night. Right? And so if you can make it easier, I think that's good.
Right.
So I love the vision. I love the impact that you're trying to get to. I love some of the things that you're putting together. I'm curious, tell me how you're actually approaching this, right?
So when we first started talking about this, we really wanted to make sure we made it a cross-team effort where we involved a number of stakeholders throughout product organization, and we actually did it jointly with our engineering organization too. So we were lucky enough to find this guy that I happen to know who ran some classes on AI and product, and I'll let him sort of toot his own horn there, but it was outstanding.
Thank you for the kind words.
Right. We sent 5 or 6 people from product and another 5 or 6 people from our engineering leadership to a course together. And they all learned the same thing at the same time. They all heard the same words, and they were able to share and to compare notes and learnings together so that as we approached how do we implement AI within product and engineering sort of simultaneously, we did it in a very coordinated fashion. In fact, our program management leader kicked off the joint initiative yesterday that will build on all the learnings from the 10 or 12 people that went to class already. And so we've got this cadre now of our internal advocates and evangelists who say, we need to do this. This is going to be really cool for all of us. And then we'll take that and we'll institutionalize it through our program management office. And then we're going to build it into a real program and roll it out. Simultaneously, at the company level, we formed an AI governance committee, and within that committee, we're chartering the search for an enterprise GPT solution, one that we can roll out across all the functions in the company, and then it gives us flexibility to tailor which LLM we're using for the benefit of each function. What marketing needs versus what product needs, not necessarily the same LLM engine. And so we've been going through and canvassing and talking to OpenAI and Microsoft Amazon, Sana, Glean, and others to say, okay, tell us about your solution. Tell us about how it would make all these meet these unique requirements across our various functions, because we want to sign up and roll this out the entire company, or at least
Right.
where it makes sense.
Right.
And so the committee that's doing that work is narrowing it down so that we can get an enterprise GPT solution in place. We can roll it to each of the functions. Product and marketing are probably going to be the first two from an adoption perspective of this new solution. And then we're going to be off and running.
Perfect. Perfect. First of all, thank you for the kind words. You actually, the 10 or 12 people who came to the boot camp, they're awesome. They took it like fish to water. I really enjoyed having them. So I appreciate that. And I love your
And for
step.
all listeners, if you are interested in getting into this, take advantage of Mustafa's offering.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. I love the process, right? Because what you're talking about is number one is just the enablement piece, right? Number two is getting the technology platform right, so to speak, so you can actually, and I love the multi-LLM approach, because you know this, right? Not all LLMs are created equal, and so each one has its benefits and drawbacks. So different tasks work better with different LLMs. And then the third one, I know you touched on it, is that you really are trying to, for the lack of a better word, programatize it, so to speak, because that's really where you drive the adoption. Because the adoption piece is where you get the benefits that you just talked about. And I know you talked about, I believe John, right? John is the one who's running the program management piece, right? Because John was awesome in the boot camp. But you're also putting that function in the product ops piece as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So tell me more about how you're actually doing that scale piece or the adoption piece, because I think that's where a large amount of companies struggle with.
Like I mentioned, we've grown through a number of acquisitions. I think it's 11 with 12 with 2 more about to sign in the next couple of weeks in like the last 5 years. So if you imagine that from a product management perspective, that's 11 to 13 or 14 different product management approaches that you've got to standardize into one. And we want it to be the one simpler way. And so the product ops team that I formed has been doing a fantastic job at trying to standardize how we do what we do. They started with release management, moved on to end of life and end of support, and now we're tackling road mapping so that we do road mapping the same across the entire portfolio. It sounds trivial, but by no means is it a trivial thing to do, because you are changing culture at the same time. With AI, I actually think we're going to get, as we roll this out into product, we're going to get an acceleration of our standardization, because we can create a prompt library. We can share learnings about how to leverage the power of AI consistently across the portfolio. Our engineering, architecture, and UX teams can provide feedback and say, hey, this one's different from this one, so why is it different? You should be doing things the same way. So we're building a virtuous cycle into how we roll this out to make sure that the feedback ensures consistency across the entire portfolio.
And I think you're right. And you know what? The idea about having so many different product approaches and going down to the simpler way, so to speak, and using AI as an accelerator. Because, once you use an AI prompt, you are getting the consistency. It doesn't matter who uses it, right? All your PRDs are going to look the same.
That's right.
All your release notes are going to look the same. All your user stories are going to look the same, because the AI is the one, quote unquote, writing it. And the only thing that really changes is the context that the PMs put in for their different products.
That's right.
And so I agree with you that this may be, quote unquote, the holy grail, because you know this, right? We've been in product long enough. Everybody does it a little bit differently.
Oh, yeah.
And while it's great at that PM level, at the executive level, that's a real pain.
Right.
So I think that's fantastic. Any early wins you've seen so far? I know you're way ahead of the curve than most of the CPOs out there, because they're not even thinking about using AI for product work. But I'm curious, any early wins that you can share with our audience today?
Yeah, I think it's through all the POCs that we've run and sort of making sure that this was the approach that we needed to do. What we found was it made it easier for our product teams to do their jobs. Once they got the hang of the prompts, they definitely started getting much more productive. We will save 10, 15, 20% of time. So we're
Perfect.
going to deliver on our efficiency savings and the productivity gains, and it will improve the quality of life for our employees. So I know that's coming. The bigger impact for me, and the more selfish one for me, is downstream, because the consistency that we just talked about for our UX architecture and engineering teams across our broad portfolio is what really excites me, and it excites them because they know that they're going to get consistent inputs into their processes so that they can be more efficient. And as a result, we've got our internal advocates within product who all are super excited about doing this. And then you've got a bunch of advocates on the pull side saying, oh my God, we want you to go do this so that we can be better for you and we can deliver better for our customers. And that rarely happens. And for us to be able to get two groups within a company who already work really well together to both get excited about the rollout of a single technology, even if it's only in one group, that's pretty powerful. And then the
Yeah.
engineering guys on their own are coming with a bunch of applications for them,
Yeah.
which will improve them
Yeah.
as well. So I think this is going to be a big change for us over the next sort of 6 to 12 months as we roll this out across product and engineering, and the impact will be palpable for our
Yeah.
customers.
And I call AI like one of those mobile phone moments, right? Once you start using it for your work, it's hard to go back, right? Like I've never seen somebody who's bought a mobile phone and said, you know what, I actually don't like it. I'm not going to use it anymore, right? And it's like a ratchet product, right? Once you start using it, you can never go back. And not only that, but once you start using it, you suddenly see so many more applications that you had never even thought about before.
Right.
Because now suddenly you know what it can do. And in many ways, the better your team gets in using AI, the better they get with using prompt engineering, the better they get to using it and building it into their product, right? So it's like a virtuous circle,
That's right.
right?
That's right. And I think yeah, because I haven't even really thought about it in those terms, but I keep pushing on the teams to start thinking about how do we apply the magic of AI in our products as well to deliver additional value for the customer. And everybody's got a bunch of ideas. But I think you're right. The more they use it, the more intuitive it will become for them to say, oh, I could put it here or here or here
Yeah,
to deliver incremental value that I had never thought of before.
yeah, yeah. I've seen that with some of the other clients I've had is they're usually using this to just get their people going on AI so they can start thinking about it.
Yeah,
Because right
that's
now, the
good.
way people use AI is very, or they think about using AI in the product is like an arm's length type of relationship, right?
Yeah,
It's like asking somebody who doesn't have a mobile phone to like design a mobile app. Like
right.
doesn't work. So this is so two other questions. Number one is as you're doing this, what are some of the challenges do you see? I know you've talked about some of them already. But what are some of the challenges that you see that you will have to overcome so far? Because I mean, the transformation you're talking about is not an easy one, right?
No,
The benefits are great, but it's not going to be easy like anything else in an organization. So I'm
no, I
curious, what are
think,
the
yeah. So I think the big one is, like you said, it's just it's rolling out anything new,
yeah,
and there's going to be the need for a champion in each of our major product areas to make sure they're the evangelist who are really sitting down and working with their peers to help them adopt this new approach and new technology. We'll have to make sure that we do a really good knowledge share, best practice sharing. It's going to have to be a very proactive, overt effort to ensure people feel comfortable applying this new technology and new techniques to their role. Because we will be asking them and in some cases demanding that they do things differently.
right.
I think the other thing that has to come in mind is just cost. And this is not an
Yeah.
inexpensive venture by any stretch. As we think about rolling it out across our company, we're at 1,800 plus employees now. Not everybody needs to have access to this. And so if you start thinking about how many people really do need access to a license, you can whittle it down. But I have about 85 to 100 product people in my organization. And if we're paying 10, 15, 20, $30 a month, like you hear
That's
in the
yeah,
market, it gets really expensive really fast. And so
yeah,
when you start putting the business case together, can you justify the ROI? And I think the answer still is yes, but you have to make sure that this rolls out at that price point and everybody uses it.
yeah. And this is where the case, and when you talk about costs, you're really talking about the technology costs. right? And I think that eventually this makes the case of having more of the open source LLMs, maybe that will make it a much easier, so to speak, right? And so you can you can pick and choose which LLMs to go after. Because I do think the open source LLMs are not there yet. But if you look at it, they're catching up, so to speak.
Right.
And so even if you use open source for quote unquote internal automation, they're still going to be, they might be like, 6 months behind 4.0, but they're still much better, right? And every 6 months they keep getting
Right.
better and better.
Right.
Right.
And like most things, are you really going to use all of the power and all of the functionality in everything that you're doing? And it's probably no.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all heard the stat about most users of Excel use 10% or less of the capability of
Mm-hmm.
the application. And everybody thinks it's already super powerful as it is.
Yeah.
And there's still 90% more that you don't
Yeah.
even know what to do with.
Yeah. And I think the real power is in what you earlier mentioned is that prompt library, because that really is the knowledge base,
Right.
right? The library of prompts that you can decimate or you can distribute to your product managers to do A, B, C, D, or whatever it might be. I think that becomes the most valuable piece, right? That unfound becomes a new process that becomes your new knowledge management repository. Um, and that hopefully is not that expensive, but I think that's what its value is.
That's right.
Um,
Right.
Any last question, any nuggets of wisdom you like to share with other CPOs who are thinking about doing this or are about to start this journey? Or maybe even
Just
to
jump
convince them
in.
to start the journey?
No, I'd say, look, just jump in. I said, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Mustafa can introduce us. You should ask him if you have any questions, because he's talked to lots of us about this who have done it, or who are trying it, or working their way into it, like we are. I think you can dip your toe in the water, and you don't have to spend a lot of money and invest a lot of resources, and you can see how quickly you can get a return on it. You'll energize your employee base in a way that you haven't in a long time. And I think that alone will probably be worth whatever it takes for you to roll this thing out, because all of a sudden you've got highly engaged, highly energized employees where they're in product. It's not an easy job. And so if you can make it easier for them, they're going to love you for that.
Perfect. Thank you very much.